Welcome to a new 3-minute Lightroom edit challenge. Hello, welcome to iansstudio. I'm Ian Butterfield. I've got another 3-minute Lightroom edit challenge for you today. This has come from one of my live streams. This time the image has been supplied by Richard Lovelock. The concept behind the 3-minute edit challenge is myself and fellow photographer Rick Bradbury are supplied a raw file, and we've got just 3 minutes to edit it in Lightroom. We haven't seen the file before, so it's all straight off the top of our heads, no preparation for it. Let's see what we can do in 3 minutes. Develop module. Timer starts. Right, okay, we've got some settings already on there. I'm going to reset that. And wow, underexposed. Right. Let's first of all fix the exposure and just bring that up. Gonna be a little bit careful with the highlights on there, so bring up the shadows. White balance, I'm assuming that was a grey background, so I'll use that as my tones on there. Right, lens corrections as ever need to go in there. That's helped a little bit. Now, what are we going to do with those shadows on there? We need to bring that up. And maybe the blacks as well to get the detail back. A little bit of clarity. I'm beginning to think this one's probably a black and white image, so let's have a look what we've got in our black and white settings. I've got 2 minutes to this. I think black and white 7 is quite good on this one because it helps bring out some of the detail in things. Right, let me go full screen as well so you can see a little bit better the different ones. So I'm going to go black and white 7, close. Right, I've got 1 minute 30 left. Right, now then, I've got some noise because we've had to bring that out. So noise reduction in the detail. Right, whack the colour one up because that always helps. Luminance up on there. Right, okay, and the contrast on it. Right, okay, that's all I'm going to have time to do on that. So now back to the basic tab. Looking at, I know I do this a lot, but I'm going to add a vignette on here. So effects. Just a very slight vignette, I think, will help this one. Feather it off on there. Back to basic, I've got 47 seconds. It's those highlights I'm concerned about. If I bring that down and bring the exposure up slightly, and we've got there. Now, I'm going to bring the texture down on the skin. I've got 31 seconds, therefore, to paint back the texture. So, okay, adjustment brush. Reset everything, and texture, I'm going to bring that back, and small brush, I'm just going to paint some more texture back in on the eyes where I took it out, on the mouth. Let's bring the flow back up as well. I've got 7 seconds, bring that back there, more texture on here, just try and bring back what I've lost, and that's as far as I can go with it. So that was my edit of the file. Let me show you now what Rick made of it.
So we have a portrait. First thing I'm just going to double check here is the composition, which seems fine, seems well balanced enough for a half-length portrait. Let's get that off Adobe Color. Seriously. Right, and we will go for the profile corrections. This was shot, by the way, on a Canon 5D Mark III with a 70-200 at 112mm f10 160th ISO 100. There we go. That's all we need to know about that. And we will get to editing. First thing that's first, we need to lift the exposure. Now, I'm not going to do any kind of color correction at this point because we need to do a fair change on exposure and contrast first. So we're going to give it probably a about half a stop there. We will go into medium contrast curve. At that point, make sure all colour and noise reduction's off for now, and I'm going to give a little bit of a boost on the shadows. Now we've got to be careful with files from these cameras, because if you go too far it looks like crap. So not push too far on the older Canon RAW files to there, and let's go just a little bit on the curve here, just a little bit of a lift, which will do the rest of the exposure work for us. At that point, highlight wise, we've got plenty of wiggle room in there before we start to need to worry about it really. You have to push it quite far before it blows, and it's not even doing that at that stage. So at least now we've got the t-shirt looking white, and let's have a look at the white balance at this stage. It's not too bad at default, come across a little bit warm, so it's probably flash white balance setting on that camera. So we'll just cool it down just a touch there, and take a little bit of magenta out of it. Go a little bit on global contrast, doesn't need a whole lot. I don't want to bring the blacks down because we're still going to start to lose a little bit of detail there. We'll go a little bit on the texture, and we will go with a little bit of sharpening. 20 seconds left, oh my god, right. Let's crank that up. A little bit of sharpening there, and we are probably about good to go. So we have the before and after, which isn't doing the full changes, but there we go. But that's my edit on this image here.
After we've edited the files, both myself and Rick provide some feedback to the photographer, in this case Richard. So let's start off with the feedback that Rick gave following his edit.
Okay, back in Lightroom. What I'm going to do is, if I reset this image, first thing off the bat to note is it's dark. It's a bit underexposed, and we can see that from the histogram. We've got a huge amount of wiggle room in the histogram there to lift it. So we'll undo that there. So this could have been done with being shot at around f8. Would have been a better exposure to start with. At that point you could have gone to ISO 160 instead. That would have done it also, or of course increase the flash power at that point. So we'll undo the reset settings. Now, composition wise, like I said earlier on, fine, nice balanced shot. For a half length, couple of things that we need to look at. I'm not quite sure why she's doing this, whether it's she's got a headache, migraine, trying to read my mind. Not quite sure what the story is behind that. Now there could be very well be a reason that I don't know about. I wasn't there at the time, granted, but I'm left wondering as a new viewer to the image why. We can tell it was lit from camera left position because we can see a large shadow from the hand and the arm cast on the face here. So a way to combat that and get more light in this eye would have been to bring the light further round. Also watch for this jacket as well, as it's folded and flares out. It's kind of a flat area of clothing that's here that can start to suggest that the person who's wearing it is a little wider than they are or bigger than they are potentially, so just watch for clothing problems like that. It looks like quite a difficult jacket to deal with in that because of the cut and how it's stitched and how I suspect that it will hang on the body. Well, the main thing is really watch for the shadows being cast on the face. Now this could have come from hair, from bangs. It's not the hardest light in the world, but again it's not the softest. We can see by the highlight to shadow transition lines there. It looks like it was more of a is it a strip box, or maybe the edge of a softbox that I'm seeing in the curvature of the eye. so quite a narrow source by the look of it, quite punchy, quite contrasty. They're wearing a black top, so you do get a lot of blocking shadow here at this point. What separates the rest of the jacket from that happening is obviously it's shiny material, so we see the highlights being picked up there at that point. But just watch for the light placement, the light source and type that's used as well. And again, I'm not 100% sure on this action or pose here as to why or what the story is behind that really at that point. But it's quite distracting having the hand shadow here. Another thing that you get as well is quite a bright back of the hand versus the face, because the face typically sees more sun day to day. We'll have makeup, foundation on as well. The underside of the hands tends not to go too bright, but the backs of the hands, sides of the hands will. Angle of incidence, angle of reflection of the light. So we need to watch for that. But overall, thank you very much for sending that in. Nicely composed shot, a little dark off the bat on the exposure. So thank you very much for sending that in, Richard.
And now it's my turn to provide some feedback on the image. Right, I've gone up on the screen now. You can see Richard's edit on the image here. We've got Richard's edit here, which is a closer crop. Now, I like that sort of crop, but the one thing I would just caution about this sort of thing is you're throwing away a lot of pixels to go from a vertical orientation to a horizontal orientation like that. Now, it's 5D Mark III camera, but even so, there's a lot of data that's being lost there. So I would have thought, yeah, do that kind of crop in camera rather than doing it in post-production. With your edit, Richard, there's a couple of things I would say. Is the highlights on the forehead, they are very bright on there. I've got away with it a little bit on the black and white, but even on there, it's a little bit much. As Rick said, that pose, it does look like it was either hypnotizing or trying to send a psychic signal to someone. What bothers me a little bit about it is the crop here. I'd like, if you're going to go for this horizontal crop, I'd like to see it perhaps start on the edge here and have a little bit more space in front, so she's got more space to look into the image than we have at the moment on there with it. It doesn't seem to matter on the vertical, but on the horizontal that does matter. A couple of other things to watch. You've got quite a few flyaway hairs up here which are a little bit distracting on it. I think I would light it, if that pose was definitely what I wanted, I'd light it differently. I'd bring the light round so I can get the light onto the face. Yeah, 1.5 stops underexposed with it. I had to pull it up to get a reasonable exposure with it. And we can see even with there, we're still nowhere near the top on the histogram with it. So watch your exposure. Make sure that you don't that doesn't happen. Check the histogram on the back of your camera, basically when you're shooting, and that would have been obvious on the histogram that it was underexposed. I actually quite like the jacket. I know Rick says it's a problem one. I like the darkness on it. I think that can work. You do need to make sure that we don't lose all the detail. We can see on the histogram here, we've not gone into the point where all the detail's lost and the blacks are plugged up with that. So yeah, nice image, strange pose, not convinced by your crop, I think is the bullet points on that from me. I hope you found the video helpful. If you did and you would like one of your images to be the star of a future 3-minute Lightroom edit, then please get in touch. My email address is contactme@iansstudio.co.uk, or put a comment below this video to let me know you'd like to take part, and I'll be in touch and let you have the instructions on how to submit an image. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.